Now this is a headlamp. The HM65RT is an updated version of the best-selling HM65R headlamp from Fenix, with improved performance and a new patented headband fit system, but in a slightly lighter weight package designed specifically for trail running, hence the T in the name. It's got a maximum output of up to 1,500 lumens and retails for $100 US. You might remember this headlamp from my video on how to choose a headlamp for trail running, and you've likely seen me wearing it in a few of my videos over the past year. And I won't bury the lead here. That's because it's become my favorite new headlamp for my longer races and adventures. But it's also got a couple of drawbacks that I'll talk about in this video. This is my second in a series of reviews that I have planned as I search for the perfect set of headlamps. I'll include a link below to my first review on the high-powered Nitecore HC68, which I'll be making a few comparisons to within this video. I say that I'm searching for a set of headlamps because I don't believe that the perfect all-around headlamp really exists. Instead, I think that certain headlamps are better for certain use cases, and the HM65RT here has become my favorite for some, but not all situations. I've divided this video into chapters, starting with an overview of all of the headlamp's features and specifications. I'll then rate it based on a series of criteria, including fit and comfort, build quality, customization versus ease of use, and overall value compared to other headlamps in this price range. And lastly, I'll give you my final thoughts and suggested use cases for the headlamp. Now, the usual disclaimers apply here. Fenix did send me this headlamp to review, which I've been allowed to keep, but I was not paid to do so, and they had no input into what I'll be saying in this video. I do, though, make a small commission from the affiliate links included below in case you decide to buy the headlamp, which won't cost you anything extra, but it does help out the channel. So let's start with what's in the box. The headlamp comes with a USB-C charging cable, a spare O-ring, the instructions, and a 3,500 milliamp hour 18650 lithium-ion rechargeable battery. This is the same battery as the Nitecore HC68 featured in my previous review. The headlamp weighs 140 grams with the battery and strap, which is on the heavier side, but 27 grams lighter than the Nitecore HC68, despite its very similar form factor and battery. The main difference, though, is that this one only has a single strap instead of an overhead strap, which would help with the weight. And while I do love the design of this rotary clasp, this lack of head strap is, in my opinion, this headlamp's biggest drawback. And this is something I'll talk more about in the chapter on fit and comfort. As usual, it has two different beam patterns, a spot and a flood. For the spotlight, it uses a luminous SST 40-watt LED, which is the same high-powered bulb as the two that are used in the Nitecore HC68. This is capable of giving you up to 1,300 lumens on high mode for up to 4 hours. For the floodlight, it uses a slightly warmer neutral LED from Cree, which is capable of up to 400 lumens for up to 12 hours. When combined, you can get an incredible 1,500 lumens for a much shorter period of time, though, of course, which is a blinding amount of light anyway, but could be useful in a pinch. Now, I should point out, though, as I did in my previous review, that you're going to always want to take these ratings with a grain of salt, because while most headlamps will at least start at their rated output level for a given mode, they will slowly start to dim after 30 minutes or so, and possibly even much faster as heat builds up, as you can see in this chart that came with this headlamp. Now, this one's designed to step down once it reaches 65 degrees Celsius, and again once it reaches a certain voltage level. So these measurements are really a measurement of the peak output for a given period of time with a fully charged battery and under ideal conditions. But that's going to be the case really for any headlamp, so it's just something to keep in mind. But what really excites me about this headlamp isn't those top-line ratings, but it's in how long it can last at a much more reasonable output level. With the spotlight on medium mode, you'll get up to 400 lumens for up to 12 hours. And 400 lumens really is the sweet spot, in my opinion, for trail running. It's about as bright as I find that I really need, even on technical trails, and the fact that it can last for up to 12 hours means that it can last through an entire night or possibly more. And that's just perfect for something like a 100-miler, where I can pop a fresh battery in, maybe carry a spare just in case, and then just set it and forget it. There's also a medium mode for the floodlight of up to 70 lumens for up to 36 hours, Now this chart from Fenix also shows the ratings in candelas, which I find is actually a much more effective way to compare headlamps, and it's something that I'll explain further in a future video. Now, one thing that this headlamp is missing though is a red light mode. In fact, it really doesn't have any other bells or whistles to speak of at all. But that's also what makes it so great in my opinion, which I'll talk more about in the section on customization versus ease of use. But what it does have though is a locking function. You just need to hold down both buttons until the floodlight flashes to show you that it's locked, and then repeat this to unlock it. And a locking function is a must-have, in my opinion, for trail running headlamps. I mean, yes, you could take the battery out and maybe put it in backwards or just remove it completely, but putting it back in can be cumbersome to do in the dark. Now you charge this headlamp with this rear USB-C fast charging port. I mentioned in my last review how I'm a huge fan of USB-C charging, especially for these higher capacity batteries. But like the Nitecore, the USB-C cable that this headlamp comes with is actually USB-C to USB-A, meaning that you'll be limited to USB-A charging speeds, unless you have your own USB-C to USB-C cable and compatible USB-C charger. The headlamp is rated IP68, which means it'll be protected from dirt and dust and is waterproof and submersible up to 2 meters. And it's rated for up to 2 meters of impact resistance, something I've already put to the test a couple of times over the past few months. I tend to forget that I'm wearing a headlamp when I pull off my buff or my hat at the end of a run. And at least twice, I dropped this headlamp from a height of about 6 feet directly onto the pavement. And while it scratched the paint in a couple of spots, the headlamp is otherwise completely intact. So now let's talk more about my experience in using this headlamp over the past year, starting with comfort and fit. Now, this is the one area where this headlamp fails in my opinion, which I alluded to before. The strap uses this rotary clasp, which you might recognize from things like cycling shoes. This makes it really quick and easy to adjust and even faster to release. And all these cords seem to be really strong as well. I've stretched this out to the max on my ski helmet without any problems. Now the strap itself is really comfortable, but unfortunately I find that the headlamp bounces a fair bit and can slip down over time, so I need to occasionally adjust it, especially when I'm running really hard downhill. Now it's much less of a problem if I'm wearing this over a buff, which I tend to do anyway, but wearing it directly on my forehead is pretty much out of the question. Now at 140 grams, this is definitely on the heavier side for trail running headlamps, especially given that all of the weight is up front as opposed to having a separate battery in the rear. Compare this to the Nitecore HC68, which is 167 grams, but which has an over-the-head strap. Now, as I concluded in that video, I think that over a certain weight, maybe around 120 grams or so, a headlamp just needs to have this extra strap, at least as an option. Now, this is actually one of the main differences between the HM65RT and the original HM65R. So I'm tempted to recommend that if you're particularly worried about this, and especially if you have a smaller head, to actually consider picking up the original HM65R instead for this reason. This really is the only area that I'd like to see improvements on this headlamp, so hopefully they'll consider adding this optional removable head strap in the future. So with that in mind, I give this headlamp a 3 out of 5 for comfort and fit. But they're definitely onto something with the design of this rotary clasp, and for some people it may not bounce or move around at all, especially if you're doing more hiking rather than hard downhill running. But as I said, there's room for improvement here. But where it suffers a bit in comfort and fit, this headlamp definitely excels in terms of its ease of use. There really only are 2 buttons on this headlamp, one for the spot and one for the flood. And the bulbs are controlled completely independently of each other. Just hold down one button to turn either of the bulbs on, and then press it again to cycle from low to medium to high and back. And anytime do the same with the other button if you want to use both bulbs at the same time. The only button combination that you need to remember is to hold both buttons down to lock it or unlock it, as I mentioned before. That's it. I know this might sound silly, but I just can never seem to remember complicated button combinations for the various headlamps that I use throughout the season. Because while I might use this for my all-night runs and 100-mile races, I have a different headlamp I tend to use for shorter evening runs, and another that I carry as a backup. Not to mention the fact that I'm often testing out new headlamps, and I'm occasionally using a headlamp after being awake or moving for 24 hours or more, when my brain isn't exactly functioning at full capacity. So I just firmly believe that the buttons and functionality of any headlamp should be as simple and intuitive as possible, even at the detriment of features and customization options. With these two buttons, you can combine the flood and the spot in pretty much any way, and it's very easy to tell which of the three modes that you're on for either. Combining the two bulbs to varying degrees is about as much customization as I would ever really need for trail running. Now, another huge plus for this headlamp is the battery indicator, which again is very intuitive. There's no number of flashes that you need to remember. It just shows you how charged it is based on how many of these little blue lights light up. Simple, but highly effective. So 5 out of 5 for customization versus ease of use because of how dead simple this headlamp is to operate. And other manufacturers should take note. Now, I already mentioned the build quality and how well this headlamp has stood up to my clumsiness after having dropped it a couple of times on the cement. So 5 out of 5 for build quality as well. And overall, I actually give it a 5 out of 5 for value too, because it's about as bright and long lasting of a headlamp as I think that I'll ever need at just $100 US. Assume though that you are going to need a second battery, even just to carry as a backup in case of emergencies, so that'll run you another 30 bucks or so. In fact, I've bought myself 2 spare batteries so that I could use it for multi-day races and adventures. And I went for these slightly more expensive batteries from Fenix, which have built-in micro USB charging ports, which allows me to charge multiple batteries at once without having to charge them within the headlamp itself. And you can also get a high-speed single or dual cell charger if you'd prefer to use the regular batteries like the one that comes with the headlamp. So let's wrap this up by talking use cases. Now, this headlamp, as I said, has become the one that I tend to reach for anytime I need something really bright that can last reliably for more than just a few hours. And it's now my default for any races lasting an entire night, like 100 milers. That 400 lumens for 12 hours is really hard to beat. Now compare this to the Nitecore HC68 that I reviewed in my last video, which can only sustain 250 lumens for up to 6 hours. Given the weight and the fit of this headlamp though, it's not one that I typically use for my shorter evening runs of say like 90 minutes or even up to 2 to 3 hours. So if you tend not to run for more than just a couple of hours in the dark, or if you just need something for emergencies, then this headlamp is definitely going to be overkill. Without a red light, it's also not a great option for camping and other lower output activities. But if you are a 100-mile runner looking for a dependable headlamp that can last through the entire night to pair with 1 or 2 smaller headlamps, maybe for these other use cases, then look no further, because this is definitely the best headlamp, so far at least, that I have found for that purpose. Now, I'd love to hear what you think about this headlamp based on what you've heard so far. Is it one that you might consider? So tell me in the comments below. I've got more headlamp reviews in the works, including some smaller headlamps that are more appropriate for those other use cases I mentioned, so stay tuned for that as well. If you found this video helpful, give it a like and be sure to subscribe for more videos like this.